But I can tell you that the legislative interpretation of that is pretty clear, and in fact, that's why a bill was brought to the legislature this year to delay the requirement, because all of a sudden this was, yeah, the vast majority of our districts in the state already have one equivalency or another going on. I mean, this is not a new thing, right? So that you just saw, you know, dozens of them in the districts that you have been visiting the last couple of days. So were that the case, where they could just continue to offer the equivalencies, this list would be of almost no relevance to them. The reason it is of relevance is twofold. One is it standardizes the amount of the credit that gets awarded. But the other, and this is where the State Board of Education opposed this part of the bill, you must offer at least one on this list. And I believe it's math or science? Yeah, math or science. And then in a separate part of the legislation, which we probably could throw up, there's a waiver offered for districts that are under a certain size. I don't know, you know, that's a piece of the law that we could pull up for you after lunch.
Wow. Mom upside down. Wow. This is big. This isn't little. So I think this is a really new understanding that is out there. And essentially what this says is that every district has to develop and staff a new course. So I think about our situation in our small rural district where our CTE instructors are staffed to the gills. I mean, we have no sections left. So we will now have to give up something that we're doing that is part of an established course sequence in order to staff this, if what you're saying is indeed the way it's being interpreted. This isn't little, this is big.
And it's not what we were saying.
No.
No, it has been what we've been saying, let's be clear about that. In terms of all of the communication and the work session that we had last year at the Wazoo Regional, and the understanding has not changed from the very beginning. And in fact, that's why the waiver was put into the bill, because people were concerned about that particular provision. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the waiver.
So that's why I asked the question at the Skills Center of the principal. And so he gave those 4 courses that they're going to study to look at, you know, which one they're going to, or those are he gave 4 that they may adjust to align
That's
to.
right. And the 21 courses that were selected in part because they are the most frequently offered across the state. So by offering these 21, and then next year there'll be another 21, and so at a certain point you probably reach a critical mass, if you will, where you have created state frameworks for a preponderance of the most frequently delivered course equivalencies in the system.
So, and just to be clear, right, irregardless of what's in staff, like we're required to approve a list.
Right, that's separate from,
That's separate.
right, we're arguing about whether
But
we
there's
like the
this
law or
other-
not, but it's
yeah,
not.
because the law is the law, right, at this point.
Yeah, I think people
So
are
just to be
confused that
clear.
this is something
Okay.
the state board event did or something. This was actually something we opposed about the bill. And it has nothing to do with the decision you're facing here.
Holly and then Peter.
So regardless if this is something we did or not, I think we're gonna end up having to communicate something different than what's out and understood, because my understanding has been that the purpose of the list and the purpose of the equivalencies was, for example, you heard you say at the Skills Center today that 2 students sitting in 2 separate seats, one's getting equivalencies and one isn't,
Right.
and if they now offer one of these, all the districts would have to grant equivalency for that, not to upend the equivalencies that were already out there, which this in effect does.
That's right. And that was the reason why they were created. But that was ultimately not all that the legislature restricted themselves to. Frankly, I'm not sure where that requirement came from. It popped in somewhere between the House and the Senate, as I recall, and I never tracked down where it came from.
So this is a heavy lift, we're gonna have to help communicate that.
Peter?
And it's complicated by the fact that the statute says that the school boards have to grant course equivalency during the 15-16 school year. And I gather from OSPI is taking the position that they just have to make the decision in the 15-16 school year as opposed to having it in place, but that's not what the statute necessarily says. And, you know, I appreciate that we're not the decision maker on that, but we're gonna own the part of the problem here, and I really encourage us to get ahead of this, because the larger gain here is huge, and they could get really hung up on this question of getting from A to B.
Madeline?
Just a really quick question, how long does the waiver last? How long is the waiver for?
I mean, so the reason we're doing this here is so now I get the sense that bringing the whole law up and having people, but we need some time to go get it, whatever, so.
Okay.
If we could park a couple of these things till we can actually go pull up the law, pull up the section and answer all those questions, that'd be great, if that's, okay. Linda also is the real brains here, so she wanted to say a few more words about, I think I left out some details.
Okay.
One of the things that is in the law, and it looks like Parker's bringing that up because it looks like Jack emailed it to him, is that districts must accept one of the equivalencies from the list, and they need to make sure that students have access to that course, but it could be that the high school offers it directly, that they have the staff and the capacity to offer it, but it also could be from, you can see it down there where Parker's pointing, high schools, inter-district cooperative skill centers, or branch or satellite skill centers, or through online learning, or through running start vocational courses. So that is a wide ways that students could access.
So if you're in a district that cooperates with a skill center that offers one of these, you're already, so.
Or if you find a way to offer it online.
Yeah. But I guess the way I interpret this, correct me if I'm wrong, any district that has a cooperative agreement with the Tritech Skill Center that we just saw would be technically offering such a course because it's available to their students to enroll in.
Madeline, oh no, Cindy, did you have?
I just want to second the communication plan because I know I personally have been sharing the wrong information because I misunderstood and have said repeatedly that it was my understanding that if you had embedded, if you already had approved CTE course equivalencies, you didn't have to worry about the list. And I will go back to those folks and correct myself, but there are a lot of people I think who relied on that, and I apologize for my misunderstanding, but we need a communication. Even if it's adopting OSPI's communication statement and getting it on our website and getting it out, that this is the definitive answer, I think that's gonna be critical.
That might make sense in terms of the rollout of the approval today, is making sure that it's clear about what that means. Does that make sense to
Yeah.
staff? Connie?
I think if we go back to the origins of this, it was when people in the legislature wanted to make sure that computer science was covered as a math or a science. So I think that's what this is about, and that's why the legislature has the additional language on it. That's where it came from. So it was focused on math and science, it wasn't just CTE courses generally, it was to make sure that if something was being taught in the schools that was clearly was very heavy science or math oriented, that they ought to get credit for it.
And as I recall, it was an equity issue for, I remember Representative Stone here, who I really enjoyed working with, and it's too bad she's not in the legislature anymore, but she was really passionate about the equity piece of it, and so I think by requiring CTE policies across the state, in the sense that, you get all kids at that point.
Dan, and then we're gonna wrap up this because we have several other things.
I don't want to be too fundamentalist about this, but I I still don't see where this precludes what Holly's talking about. The question up there is who is sanctioned the equivalency? Now, are the equivalencies out there sanctioned by anybody? Or are they just floating? If they've been sanctioned, to me, they're consistent with this. Because all this says is you have to have something which has been deemed acceptable by OSPI and SPE. So, you know, well, but the fact is, I'm not quite sure if what they have right now would be in violation of that.
So we'll pull up
Yeah.
the law and just,
Okay.
after lunch. if that's
So,
okay.
so I know we have, I think we have some districts here who have come to talk about or be available to us about the waivers, and I wanna, Ben, so I'm doing a time check.
Yep.
Should we give you some time to do that and then come back to this?
I think
Or
we
what-
should.
Yeah, because I
And I
just,
see we're already past the end.
yeah,
Just one point of that, I have a question.
I think because they wanted to go back to the law and see how much time the waiver,
Madeline, if you can state your question when we're researching it, we'll.
it was the,
Just how long is the waiver? Is there a waiver, and if there is, how long?
Yeah, so we'll bring up that section, I actually don't remember, but I'll.
oh, sorry,